Welcome into GKW. It is another edition of Good Karma Wrestling. I'm Gabe Nitzo from ESPN Milwaukee. With me, as always, from ESPN West Palm, we have Brian Rowitz, and catch him mornings on ESPN 1000 in Chicago. He is Jonathan Hood. I am excited the way we're kicking off the show today because these two boys had the opportunity last week to catch up with the man as she's getting ready for her match at WrestleMania against Rhea Ripley. Also, her memoir has been released, Not Your Average Girl. So they were able to talk to her about the book and a number of different things. So our top story tonight, of course, it's the man, Becky Lynch.
Welcome back to Good Karma Wrestling, along with Brian Rowitz from ESPN West Palm. I'm Jonathan Hood from ESPN Chicago. We're so glad you're with us, and we have a very special guest, Brian, that's on the line with us.
Oh, very, very special. It's the man, Jay Hood.
What's up, lads?
It is Becky Lynch with us for the first time ever on Good Karma Wrestling. Becky, it's Jonathan and Brian. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us about the new book that you have out. We saw it on Raw. Do you have a copy? Can you flash us a little bit?
I got one here.
I do have a copy right here. Right here. Here it is. Couldn't find a good way to put it in the shot.
There you go.
Yeah, here it is. Here it is in its hardback form. I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of it. Very proud of the work that I put into it. Probably the piece of work that I've done that I'm most proud of.
Okay. If someone told young Rebecca Quinn, young Becky Lynch, like, hey, one day you'll have a life worth writing a book about, what would your reaction have been back then?
Damn straight. I will. Damn straight I will. Okay. My dad was always big on me writing. Like, he had me writing since I was like a little thing. He was like, you have to write everything down. And like at the time I was 5. I didn't have anything to write about. It was like, sweets cost 5p. You know, like whatever it was. And so I kind of kept that up throughout my entire life. I've always journaled. I love it. I look at a journal as a very cheap therapist. And then when it came to doing it, I realized that writing journals and writing books are two very different things, and also writing promos are very different. So I was good in my journalistic form, and in my journal, like is in my journal, not being a journalist, but my journaling form. And then I think I'm pretty good at writing promos, but I'd never written a book. So then I did a year-long book course, like a book writing course. And that taught me a lot about storytelling and everything like that, in terms of the long form. And here it is. Here it is, about to be out in the world.
Becky, give us a sneak preview. Will we know the difference between Becky Lynch and Rebecca Quinn in this book?
You will. You will. Like, I'm very honest. I'm very honest in terms of Rebecca Quinn's struggles and the doubts that have plagued me. And there's this weird thing in my life where I have this self-belief and then this self-doubt in almost equal measures, and they're constantly competing with each other. But I think that's what drives me forward. And so I talk about all of those things in the book. And really, in a way, it's kind of a coming of age story. You know, it's coming of age. It's growing up with this love of a thing that's not traditional. Being an Irish girl, trying to figure out how to become the man, really. And we get there eventually.
Speaking of the man and Becky Lynch, we've talked on this show. We think Becky Lynch versus Rhea Ripley might be the star of WrestleMania 40. We think you guys should be main eventing. What is that pressure like on you to go out there and steal the show when you step in the ring at WrestleMania?
What pressure? I'm the man.
Okay.
What pressure? No, really, I love it. And what I'm loving about this is that there are a lot of people doubting me right now. There's a lot of people doubting, Rhea's on this run, Rhea's gonna take it. We're forgetting we're forgetting who's doing all the groundwork. We're forgetting who's been doing all the groundwork, who's been hiding in plain sight, elevating everybody to the top of their game, delivering, to quote another Irishman, banger after banger after banger after banger, and keeping everything afloat. You know, like Rhea's been hovering around doing little backstages. I've been putting in the hard work week in, week out, grinding, grafting. And I'm at the top of my game now. But I love it when people doubt me, because I said it in a promo. When people believe in me, I'm good. But when people doubt me, I am great. And that is true. And you can read all about it in my book, The Man, Not Your Average Girl.
Yes, hold that book up, Brian. Hold that book up for everybody. So that
you don't need to look at me. There we go.
There we go. That's right. Hold that book up. You never look better, Brian.
That's right.
You never look better. Available now wherever you get your books. Becky, tell us something that we don't know about the road, as far as you. Sometimes Seth is not with you. You're not with your child. And even though you have teammates in the locker room, even though you have fans that adore you, how alone can you be being able to be the person out there on the road, in the ring, by yourself? How lonely can that be?
I don't really get much alone time these days, you know. So there's several times where we don't travel with our daughter, but for the most part we do, and we're with her every week. So when I go out there, as soon as I come back, I'm mom. I'm back to being. I go from being the man to being the mom, and I'm running around on a bus playing hide and go seek, you know. And so I think that's probably the part that people don't see about me. You know, it's not necessarily about the alone time. It's about the times when I come off stage and I go from being a badass to just being a big old softie. To be, well, actually just being like, she's a little bit of a dictator, this child. Like she's, you know, she runs a tight ship.
She get that for you or her father?
I think a little bit of both, and she's stubborn, you know. So everybody's got to be on board, and she's a little director, you know. So she's giving you things that you have to do, and then she gives you line reads. No, don't say it like that. Say it like this. And she loves like wrestling now. She loves wrestling. So I was trying to teach her a lockup the other day. She's 3, and she was like, no, not that. Like how Dada does it. So Dada always takes DDTs from her. So she's like, and you gotta hit me like, I gotta hit you like this, and then grab your neck. So she knows how to do a mean DDT and a mean leg drop.
All right. Okay, genetics are amazing.
Yeah. So your daughter's Michael Hayes. Is that what's happening? Does your daughter have a fanny pack?
Oh, we should get her one. She does have the outlandish dress sense of Michael Hayes. Yeah. And they have their own little handshake. Her and Michael Hayes.
Yes. Napes.
He gives her the napes.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
gives it right back.
The women's revolution, you were one of the focal points of it, the 4 horsewomen. You guys are now all over the place in other companies, and we see so much of women's wrestling up and coming. What's the pride factor like when you see these new faces, you know, Tiffany Stratton in your own company? What's that pride factor like?
Look, it's a thing where see, we talk about women's wrestling, but it's just wrestling. You know, it's wrestling. Yep. It's just wrestling, and it's to the point now, and we're getting to the point, and I mean we've been at the point, I think, where it's just standard fare, where we should main event. If the stuff is the best story, we've got the best match. Should be the main event. Easy, done. Of course. Why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we be top 6? So we just need we need the people and the talent and the hunger and the drive to continue that. And I like it because we're at this stage where we're talking about the micro. No, we're not talking about the macro. We're not talking about the big things that need to change. We're talking about the little things that need to be changed. In terms of the grand scheme of things, you know, like we just need to be looking at it as equal. Who are our stars? What are our stories? What are the stories that we want to tell? And it's not to the point where we're saying like, oh, women's matches should get cut, you know, if this time gets is over, and there's one token women's match on a WrestleMania. There could be more. There could be more, and there could be more stories. So we need to continue to talk about that. But like the women can't be the main event. The women aren't the draws. The women aren't the stars. Like all those things are gone out the window. We are the stars. We are the conversations, and it just needs to continue. Like you've got Rhea Ripley, who is a star. You've got Bianca Belair, who's a star. You have all these people that are coming up. You've got Lyra in NXT, who is a phenomenal talent, fantastic talent with a drive and a work ethic. We just need people putting in those hours, wanting to be the top dog in the business. And that's all it takes, just wanting to drive it forward.
The book, hold it up, Ryan. Wherever books are sold, right there, the man, right there.
There it is.
Wherever books are sold. You've done
Mick Foley said it's one of his favorite memoirs, and he knows a thing or two about writing books.
He knows a thing or two. He was very helpful in this. I love him.
Becky, you've done so much in the business. Now you have written a book. What is the period at the end of your sentence? What is it that you want to accomplish that you haven't accomplished yet in wrestling?
In wrestling? Nothing. So I say that and people are like, oh God, but it's a great thing, man, because now it's not about titles. It's not about winning a certain match. I would like to win the Money in the Bank briefcase. Like, I like the power that holds over a champion, it just puts him on edge. But that's just but what I'm saying is that I'm more interested in the stories and going back to the basics. Why did I start this? Because I love it. And so that's all it comes down to. It's the love of it. And now you're not thinking about what can I get out of it. You're just thinking, what can I put into it? And that is a beautiful space to be. That is my favorite space that I've been in. How can I give back to this as opposed to what's in it for me? Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, for you personally, bigger moment, sharing a beer with Stone Cold or becoming a U.S. citizen?
Sharing a beer with Stone Cold. It's pretty on par, right? It's pretty on par. I didn't have to take a test to drink a beer with Stone Cold Steve Austin, though, so that was good.
It's only because we assumed that you're already a U.S. citizen. That's why. That was for Michael Cole. We already thought you were a U.S. citizen. That came out of nowhere.
It was a pretty cool moment, though. Pretty cool, especially going to the White House and then the next day taking my citizenship test. So that was cool. Felt very good karmically.
Becky, you were in some places at the White House you weren't supposed to. That book That book was on a bookshelf in the White House. How did that happen?
Still is.
Oh.
Unless the Secret Service has moved it by now. How did that happen? I just wandered in. I brought a couple of copies of my book in case anybody wanted one. So put it on the library there. Said, here you go. Here you go, President, future presidents. Have a little read. Figure out what it takes to be the man.
There you go.
All right.
Well, as always, Becky, we appreciate your time. We want to make sure that everyone knows about your book. There you go, Bryan, right there. Bryan on the spot with the man. Available now wherever books are sold. We appreciate your time on Good Karma Wrestling.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
As expected, she was fantastic. No, again, that was a great job. And I loved her answer at the end of how there's nothing more she wants to accomplish in wrestling. And that doesn't mean she wants to be done with wrestling. It just means that it kind of frees her up to tell really cool stories, which I think has really opened up and been really cool for her story right now with Rhea Ripley, because it's, if this was 3 or 4 years ago, okay, well, Becky may have to win this. She doesn't have to win. She still might. I have no idea. And that's, to me, is an exciting thing as a wrestling fan to hear from her.
I'll say this, Gabe. It's kind of a question I like to ask from time to time of some of these interviews. I expect her to say, I want to be a writer in the back, or I want to run a promotion or run an all-women's, pay-per-view or something like that. She says she's done everything. And it made it seem like that she's toward the end, but no, it's a rare answer in which a wrestler says, I have more stories to tell, and I'm still in my prime. Usually in that spot, that's usually someone who's toward the end, not Becky Lynch.
Yeah, and I think you see it in just her career arc. I mean, it's been years since she's held a title outside of the NXT title, which, she had that brief run this past year, because she's just telling stories. She's in main event pictures. She's going to be a match that steals the show next weekend. Like, she's just enjoying wrestling right now.
And 2 months left on her deal in WWE.
Yes. So
I can't imagine. No. I can't imagine. All right.
cool.
Well, look. I mean, if she showed up and, put on some banger matches in AEW, would that be awesome? Yeah. Would I think WWE would be foolish to let that happen? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Accurate.
I mean, but there's been no negotiation yet. But you're right, Gabe. But more than likely, there'll be some kind of negotiation. They'll come together on something. But I find it interesting that she's put out there in other interviews 2 months left on her contract, and there has not been any talks about a new deal yet.
If she went to AEW, she'd be the women's version of Bryan Danielson. Because again, in the essence of when Bryan showed up in AEW, he just wanted to go do cool stuff. Like, he's like, man, like I've already done everything I've wanted to do. Now here's some cool stuff I can sprinkle on top of what my career's been. I feel Becky could do the same thing in AEW. She can also obviously do the same thing in WWE. All right, let's dive into some of the other top stories in the world of professional wrestling. We're only a week and a half away from WrestleMania. We call it our 3 count. Brian, what do we have number 1 this week?
10 matches announced already for WrestleMania 40 next Saturday, Philadelphia, 7 o'clock Eastern start time, both nights of WrestleMania. If you had to take one match off the Mania card right now, which would it be?
I mean, this is the easiest answer of all time, is it not? You just kind of lobbed it up. Like, how am I supposed to care about AJ Styles versus LA Knight? Like,
there's the cops involved. There's police
that
footage
was
released of those two.
I'll tell you what, as good as Monday Night Raw ended up being this week, that's how bad SmackDown was. Like, for a build to WrestleMania that featured Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns at the end of it, SmackDown largely skippable, I think, this throughout the course of the week. And there just hasn't been anything. I love AJ Styles. I really enjoyed LA Knight, kind of as he was building up, and then as he maybe has now admitted, they throw him in the main event picture too soon. Doesn't win over in Saudi Arabia against Roman Reigns, and that kind of killed his forward momentum. They're trying to build him back up, but at the same time, it seems like he's one who kind of gets cut. Now, they did a segment that couldn't get cut in terms of the police angle and the arrest thing. I don't think that hits in 2024 the way it hit back in 1998. So that one just didn't hit for me. This build, they've been trying, God bless them, but it has not been hitting for me. If I had to take out one match, it'd be AJ Styles versus LA Knight.
I think that I can agree with that. I also say this: if Jade Cargill is going to have a match against Nia Jax, I don't need to see that at WrestleMania. If that's where they're going, because now we know that Jade Cargill is a SmackDown superstar. If she has a match, for me, I know it's sink or swim, but if that's going to happen at WrestleMania, I would prefer that on SmackDown or one of the TV shows before she goes that main stage.
But that feels like she's getting thrown in a 6-woman match. You do her, Naomi, and Bianca versus Damage Control.
Oh, I got no problem with that.
But then Nia feels left out, unfortunately.
Yeah, I got no problem with that. But if that's where they're going, because they can make the story of, hey, who threw out Nia Jax at the Royal Rumble? Sure. It was Jade Cargill, and they have a match. I think that's a little too soon. A match I don't need to see. Not on WrestleMania, no.
That's fair. So I'm going to take a different approach on this. I agree with what you guys are saying. LA Knight, AJ Styles, like, even in the ring, like, doesn't excite me because I don't think LA Knight's on AJ Styles level. Like, it'll be a good match, but a match like that will serve its purpose over 8 hours of wrestling over 2 nights to be a good break. The one I'll throw out there, just because I think it deserves more time and it feels almost forgotten these last month or so, is Bayley and Io. The build for this has been sort of like, Bayley's not front and center, despite the fact that she won the damn Rumble. They're like, oh yeah, Bayley won. Like, do you want to show up to this thing? And I feel like if those two were on a different card, a SummerSlam or something, they would get the stage those two ultimately deserve in the ring.
I mean, yeah, Bayley has been outshone. It's now they made the pivot. I guess it really wasn't a pivot, but they throw Naomi in it. Now Bianca Belair's involved in that storyline, and they have been outshining Bayley without a doubt. And I was super excited when Bayley won the Royal Rumble. Mm-hmm. They have not done a very good job of keeping that excitement, even after Damage Control turned on her. Like they built the excitement. Really, the last month, it's kind of lost some of that forward momentum, and it's disappointing. I'm hoping they end up putting on a banger of a match, and it ends up being one that is kind of not talked about heading into the show a ton. But then we end up leaving one of those nights going, man, what was really good though? Bayley versus Io.
I have no problem with Bayley because the turn was coming. She's not part of Damage Control. The problem I have is Io Sky. It's pretty clear that the belt's making her. When you see her come to the ring, you're like, that's right. She's a WWE Women's Champion because she doesn't speak English.
Right.
And so she doesn't cut promos. She looks good with that group, but she's kind of it's like Asuka light. You see her kind of stumbling down the ring. The championship's half off her shoulder. I'm like, oh, I've seen that before. Asuka. And by the way, not to say that Io Sky can't go. She's a tremendous wrestler. But I think that the language barrier is an issue. That's probably why they brought Dakota Kai in, just to kind of be a mouthpiece. But it's just Io Sky. The run, to me, has been underwhelming.
Yeah, it feels like one of those situations where, the Money in the Bank cash-in was such a moment, and we saw it with Liv also, where it's like, oh, this is awesome. And it's like, oh, there's no follow-up to this. Like, you got that one moment, that one pop, and it's like, all right, let's move on now. Like, it's just missing. Like, honestly, it's sort of Bloodline-esque where Dakota and Bayley seem to have more of a story and seeing what happens there, but you have Io as the one with the champion.
Well, it makes you realize how much Bayley was actually carrying the group when she was in the group, right? Because she was the main focus of it. And then she looked badass with all these other women around her with these titles. And it's like, hey, look what I did. I assembled this group. We got all the gold here. And then they end up kicking her out. And I think, you're starting to see some of those things that just haven't quite connected. I'm curious to see what happens with Bayley. I thought for a moment after she won the Rumble, the turn happened because you saw it coming. I thought for a moment that maybe they would go back to, when she comes out at WrestleMania, she'll have the side pony and she's going to be the hugger Bayley. I don't think we're getting that.
Really?
I don't think that's a version of Bayley we're going to see. I think that version of Bayley may be dead. I don't think we're getting that version of Bayley back.
Things? We don't get those things?
So. I don't get that. They haven't teased anything like that, have they? I would feel like they would have at least started to, especially with the way that Hunter likes to do the backstage segments where he starts to plant those seeds. Those seeds have not been planted, and we only have 2 more SmackDowns before WrestleMania.
No, guys, actually, I like this version of Bayley. I like this version of Bayley a lot better.
So do I.
Yeah. So I like this version of Bayley much more. You see what she's been wearing lately? I mean, absolutely outstanding. I mean, she can always wrestle, but she's, online, she gets a lot of attention because of what she wears. I think what's best for Io is probably get a translator like, Otani's translator. Probably a better run.
He's got some free time as of now.
Well,
try to work him into Mania.
Maybe gonna be tough to write him off when he has to,
Hey, if they can still do the Chrisley, the USA show, like they're still able to do a show. We're fine.
I think they're out of episodes now, though. I haven't seen the Chrisleys on USA in a long time.
Well, that old WWE regime would have brought that guy in, the interpreter. We got a special guest, the interpreter for Otani. It would have brought him in. It would have been some kind of joke. He would have been in there somehow.
What do we got at number 2 this week, Brian?
All right, Jeff Jarrett on his podcast was asked, who is the best storyteller in pro wrestling? He named Bryan Danielson, saying, quote, I think he has a consistent, uncanny ability to tell different stories at different pacing. Is Bryan Danielson the best storyteller in pro wrestling?
He's the best in-ring storyteller, and maybe that's what, especially with the way that Jarrett answered that question about the different tempos and the different things. And Bryan has certainly been a part of some really good stories over the last decade. I mean, before the run by the Bloodline, the best story WWE probably told was him being the B-plus player, Bryan Danielson going up against the Authority, having it all be capped off a decade ago at WrestleMania 30. That was one of the best stories WWE had told until the Bloodline came along over the last 3 years. I loved him as was he the world champ or whatever he was calling himself? The eco champ. Yeah. When he got rid of the leather belts. Like, again, the little things that he does that just kind of hit differently. And his run in AEW has been a lot of fun too. But I think Bryan Danielson's the best in-ring storyteller. But there is a different man who is the best storyteller in pro wrestling. And to me, he's going into the Hall of Fame. It's Paul Heyman.
Yes. That to me, because there's two different ways to answer that, Brian. I think that what Gabe said, Paul Heyman, because he's a non-wrestler all these years and can be able to talk people in the building, whether he's aligned with Brock or whether he's aligned with CM Punk or and others over
aligned
over
with
years.
Cesaro. Oh,
With
never
Cesaro.
mind.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was briefly, yes. Briefly.
Can't bat 1,000, all right?
Yeah, yes. Also, Curtis Axel. Whether it was Curtis Axel.
Oh man, I forgot about Curtis Axel.
Father's Day Championship. I mean, how great is that? Father's Day Championship. It was the IC title holder for a minute, I think. But I think that's two ways to answer it. To me, it's Paul Heyman at the top, and then Cody Rhodes is right there as well. Look at how Cody just captures the audience. Takes his time. He's not yelling and screaming, and just like he's doing some of his best mic work that we've ever seen. He's telling a story. He's taking his time. He learns that from his dad, clearly, or being around old school wrestling. So, I mean, in ring, Danielson, absolutely. You could understand that. But as far as talking him in the building and then delivering in the ring, I think it's guys like Cody Rhodes.
So, but Cody's more recent, isn't it? Because I think back of some of the stories that he told in AEW and they just didn't hit, like when he ended racism, and he,
that didn't work.
Like he stumbled his way around AEW, and I think that's why his TV time was inconsistent, and it just a lot of the stories he ended up telling there to me did not hit the way his current WWE storyline is hitting, and I think he's done a great job of that. Maybe he needed to go back to WWE to refine a lot of that storytelling that he's doing now, but I think of Cody after he leaves AEW. And he's doing the indie thing. You're not really telling a ton of stories on the indie scenes. Yeah, a little bit in ROH, certainly in New Japan when he was doing those things. But it was a craft that he needed to hone once he helped create AEW. And then he really, I think, kind of came into his own when he came back to AEW or to WWE.
Well, Gabe, I think the story for Cody on the indies is I'm going to bet on myself. It's the same story that Cardona is telling, that Mustafa Ali is telling, that Nick Nemeth is telling now. It's just like, I'm leaving WWE. Come watch me in your hometown. Like, my story is that I'm betting on myself. I'm better than what you saw. And with Cody Rhodes and AEW, to me, it's like anything else. If you don't have a good story, and if you're not consistent with that story, it looks like it looked, to the point where fans were booing Cody Rhodes and AEW, wanting him to turn heel because the stories were just scattershot. They're all over the place. Look at the direction of Cody now. My direction is I want to be the heavyweight champion because my dad wasn't. That's the whole thing. That's the whole story. And people have been going along with them because there's a direction. In AEW, he's solving racism here. He's doing the USA versus the UK against the Go-Go here. I mean, like, all over the place.
He's taking MJF under his wing. Then he's not. Like, it was
AEW.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, Cody has the crowd eating out of the palm of his hand. He can do anything at this point. But from a WWE standpoint, while Heyman gets a lot of the credit, like, how much is everything around him also? Like, Roman, who's been all over right now, like, does he deserve credit?
But, I mean, Roman certainly deserves credit, and Brock Lesnar deserves credit. But Heyman's also heavily involved in that, right? Like, that's the reason. Like, the reason why I think the bloodline is what it is because Heyman's there to refine it. Like, maybe it was somebody else's idea and like, hey, let's get all these, let's get our family together and we tell this great story. Heyman's there backstage to make sure it's refined. I think of all the things that Paul has done, like the SmackDown 6 era. Like he created the SmackDown 6. Like, SmackDown wasn't supposed to be good. And Paul Heyman goes, oh, I'm going to tell these stories around these 6 guys. And he just knocked it out of the park. Like, he came back and made CM Punk more interesting during CM Punk's long title run because you're associated with Paul Heyman. Now you're a heel. Paul Heyman made everybody better when he was on commentary. Like, he did a great job telling stories. Like Paul Heyman has told great stories literally everywhere in professional wrestling except in the ring because he's not a wrestler. But as a manager, as a story, as an announcer, as whatever, like everything this guy's around turns out ends up being more often than not the best thing that WWE is doing over the last 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, I guess the thing with him is like I almost look at it as like the coaches of like the really good teams where it's like, is Phil Jackson really good or does he have the benefit of, MJ, Shaq, and Kobe? Like, do you give him enough credit, I guess? Because Roman deserves credit. Sammy deserves credit. We care about the IC title right now and that whole story because of Sammy. We cared about the bloodline for so long because of the Sammy dynamic. So I guess I just don't want the other guys to lose credit and it all go to Paul in that situation.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair, but I just think, and Paul's not over all of it, but he
Right.
definitely is just like Gabe said, just refining just some of the edges, making sure that there's writers there too. But Paul's like, what if we do this? And also, Paul was quoted this week is like, I know that I've had this. We're in the third inning, fourth inning, stuck up my tuchus. He said, but baseball's fixed, so I'm not going to use baseball. We'll just say we're in extra innings.
Right.
So he's done with this fourth inning, fifth inning for this. We're in extra innings, whatever that means, which means maybe this all comes to a head in Philadelphia, where it's all done, and then there's an extension with The Rock versus Roman at some point where it keeps going on and on and on with different layers.
So that's another one I'll throw in there. You mentioned, does The Rock deserve credit right now? Like the run he's been on the last couple of weeks. You talk about pivots where this was supposed to be cheery Rock. It was supposed to be Rock Roman. He's leaned in on being a heel, and here we are is Hollywood Rock right now.
No, because most of the other stuff he's done in the last decade hasn't been interesting. He just pops up, shows up,
Gets a
and
reaction.
then disappears. No, I mean, look, and he gets a reaction as he should, but
Right.
I don't think you can float the way he did. Is what he's doing right now fantastic? Without a doubt. But you have to stack that up for years in order to be the best storyteller in pro wrestling to me. Like he's hot, but I also know after we get to Philadelphia, is he going to be at the Raw after WrestleMania the week after? I don't know when the build for him and Roman actually begins, but I think that, yes, he gets credit for this right now. But I look at Bryan Danielson and I gave examples from 10 years ago where he's like, oh man, he's hit this, he's hit that, he's hit, and this kind of thing. Same thing with Paul Heyman. 10, 15 years ago, he's doing all these great things. The Rock, 10 years ago, his build with Cena was okay. It was fine, leading to that main event WrestleMania match. It certainly wasn't what it is right now, but also part of that is also because, and the character work that The Rock is doing is great, but then he's able to latch on to the best thing that was already going in professional wrestling. He certainly enhanced it, but he also got a nice head start by being a member of that family.
Is there anyone else in AEW that you would throw out there besides Bryan?
I think Swerve Strickland's doing a great job with the character development and telling the story. He wants to be the first African-American AEW champion. He said that a year ago, and he said that for a while here. I think that he's doing great work. There's no doubt. I don't feel the same thing about Samoa Joe, though. I'm not sure what his story is. It's funny, he's a champion, but what's his story? I don't know what his mission
he's the
statement
transitional champion.
But
I love Joe. And I think he cuts a great promo. I think he looks great with the championship. I think that as much as it probably pains a lot of people to say, he's probably done more for the championship than MJF did, because MJF as champion became a comedy act. As much as we enjoyed all the things that him and Adam Cole did, the championship was supposed to be the thing that was featured on AEW front and center. This thing is the thing that matters. And it ended up not mattering for a big chunk of the time that MJF had it. The one thing I know about Samoa Joe is that championship matters. And that's important. Even if he's just the transitional championship, I think he's been able to elevate it to the point where when he loses a dynasty to Swerve Strickland, Strickland's going to be able to take that ball and run. And it's really going to be not just Swerve Strickland versus, hopefully in, Browitz's world, Strickland versus Ospreay for the championship at Wembley. But it's just going to feel bigger than it has in a long time. I guess that's what I'm hoping for. And that's what I think. You're right. I don't think there's an overarching story right now with Samoa Joe, but I think he has certainly made the championship more important.
I think that's fair. The other one I throw out there, AEW, and maybe just personal standpoint, I feel like Eddie Kingston, when he's in a big spot, you can tell how much it means to him. There's always jokes I don't know if he knows this isn't 1,000% real, but to him it is. And even the little things where he cut a promo on social last week to promote him versus Mark Briscoe at the Ring of Honor show next week, where it was all right, I'm invested. I'm into that match now.
What about the Young Bucks?
What about them?
In terms of storytellers, and in terms of storytellers in AEW, now, again, I feel like they float in and out, but I thought that when they came up with being the elites, that was fun. And they were able to, again, it got a little too convoluted because you were crossing over things that not everybody was seeing and trying to put them on regular television. But with the character work that they're doing right now, I really enjoy. I think this is some of the best stuff they've done in AEW.
I completely agree. Even the little things where, like, last night, it's like, oh, we retired Sting, and like Renee was about to be the correction, like, but you lost to him. Like, just throwing that little in there, like, they're doing enough to be assholes, and just everyone hates them. Like, I love what they're doing right now.
Oh yeah, telling Renee to smile more.
Yes.
The Eddie Kingston story, I think, has been interesting because it's more than just a hard worker. We understand he's the heart and soul of this company, and even though he doesn't have a championship, is what you mentioned. His matchup he's going to have against Mark Briscoe, I don't know if that means he's going to turn heel, but maybe a little bit more evil. Because we saw happy to be there, getting the adulation of the fan, Eddie Kingston. Now we're going to probably go back to blood and guts, Eddie Kingston.
Well, but he still has championships, right? Doesn't he still have his New Japan Strong and ROH World?
Yeah, that too.
I don't know.
I thought he was defending all three, but then when Okada showed up last night with just the one, it's like, I guess Eddie has the other one still.
Yeah.
It's very confusing.
I just thought they melded everything into one. I didn't know.
They made him carry around 3 belts. They were for 3 separate companies, and now he's got 2 for other companies.
Okay. All right. That's fine.
Yeah. So very confusing.
I think that he's doing great work too, because I think people see him as an everyman, even though he's a Japanese wrestling mark. But I mean, I really enjoy his work.
He is a Japanese wrestling mark. There is. Do we have a word stronger than mark? Like whatever that word is. That's what Kingston is when it comes to Japan wrestling, because he absolutely.
What do we got, brother? PG, brother.
All right, we saw Monday Night Raw. The night ended The Rock standing over a bloody Cody Rhodes. We also saw the return of CM Punk cutting promo with Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins. Which story do you guys want to see finish more? Cody and The Rock or Drew and Punk?
All right. First of all, it's crazy to me. And this is a WrestleMania I'm really excited for, and I think for the most part, they've done a good job of telling meaningful stories and set up really fun, good, entertaining matches heading into. That being said, these are the 2 most intriguing matchups right now in WWE, are they not? Cody versus Rock and Drew versus Punk. Like, these are the 2 best matches. Like, if everybody was healthy and everything was equal, like, these should be like the 2 matches main eventing night 1 and night 2 of WrestleMania. Yep. Which is crazy to me. And we can't with Punk because Punk is injured. But we're not getting Cody Rock, which has been, and it stands out more because the best part of SmackDown was a fan just mouthing off to Roman Reigns. Like, that was the best part of the whole Cody versus Roman exchange, was a great woman in Milwaukee going, you have to have a arena full of strangers acknowledge your bitch ass. Fantastic. But The Rock versus Cody, like, that absolutely delivered. Like, it was automatically better, and they didn't say a word to each other on a microphone to open things up. And it's unbelievable how much better Cody versus Rock and how much more and Drew versus Punk than I am to Cody versus Roman and Drew versus Rollins, which also, by the way, Drew versus Rollins is probably 3rd or 4th on this list of most intriguing matchups WWE could do right now.
You know how often I've seen that woman at a Milwaukee bar, just casual. You know how often I've seen that in Kenosha? Just with her drink, just as a matter of fact as anybody, not over the top, just kind of just with her drink, just like, your bitch ass, and then goes back to the sip. Another just
the delivery was impeccable.
I mean, but not a yell, but just a casual voice that's picked up by the mic. And you know how often I've seen that? I mean, that is just so typical Midwest, so typical Milwaukee. Look at that bitch ass over there. And then back to the drink.
Back to the drink.
just as Milwaukee as it comes, man. That's just cool chick on the side of the bar. Just look at that guy.
Look really? At this guy.
Oh, really? That's unbelievable. Well, here's what it's come down to, guys. What it's come down to is with Cody and Seth and Roman and Rock, somehow out of all of this, Roman is 4th.
Yeah.
Out of these 4, he's the Universal Champion. He is the universe of all of this. This whole thing is because Roman wants to continue his legacy as Universal Champion. And somehow with this, The Rock is so electrifying that people are looking at Rock and Cody, even though they didn't even speak at the beginning of Monday Night Raw. Just the whole thing of just those two in the ring was electric, even though Rock is not going to be in a singles match. Then there's Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins wants to defend his heavyweight championship against Drew McIntyre, but also he's got to think about this tag team match. That story's interesting. And then there's Roman. Roman, last time we saw him was a B- to a C promo on SmackDown. Like, bro, this is about you. This is about your championship. And what did he say to Cody? You must be stupid or something. Are you stupid or something? He's like doing John Travolta in like Welcome Back, Kotter. It's really strange, right? You're the champion.
Right.
So he should rise above all this, at least try to get to the level of Rock if he can. The WWE, Brian, needs to be able to have Roman by himself, no Heyman, no bloodline, and to explain how he feels about all this. Because The Rock and Cody and Seth are running laps around the champion. Laps.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to like the last few Rock promos prior to this week where Roman is standing in the ring, just standing there. And The Rock in the promo, we're intrigued by The Rock. And I've even seen people point out, it goes back to the Vegas presser where The Rock's walking out and he's yelling at Hunter and Roman's just sort of tailing behind where he's the number two. He's the clear number two, where Rocky is clearly the tribal chief at this point, to where we all think it's inevitable. Cody wins. We get Roman Rock next year. When do we get Cody Rock?
Will we ever get Cody Rock?
I don't know. And it's disappointing because it's the best story they got going. And unless they do, because in order to get Cody Rock, it would have to be next year at Mania.
Okay.
Because then you would have to do Roman Rock winning, becoming the new tribal chief, and challenging at next year's Mania.
Or could you do Cody wins, Rock doesn't turn next week, Cody Rock at SummerSlam, and some sort of Roman Rock fall out of that?
This is not supposed to be the story. The story's supposed to be around the Universal Champion. What about that guy? I mean, isn't that something? Yeah,
he's solo at this point. Amazing. He's just a guy. He just stands there, like, cool, throw him in once in a while.
And here's the thing. It's not Cody's story anymore either.
Right.
Cody's not finishing his story. He'd be finishing The Rock's story.
Yeah.
This story has become about The Rock, which, by the way, I'm cool with because he's just been killing it every time he's on screen.
Like, it took Dwayne being there every week for them finally to break out of the PG era. Like, we have finally opened a new chapter, and here we are, and it's all because of Dwayne Johnson.
Okay, so here's the question we got to get to along with this. The Rock, part of TKO, can apparently say whatever he wants as he bloodies up Cody Rhodes in the rain in the back of Allstate Arena, which I've been to that door.
Perfect touch, by the way, with the rain.
I ordered that rain. I ordered that rain just for the event. But I've been.
Yeah, Jay Hood got upset that the Milwaukee woman was really standing out on SmackDown, so he had to make sure that Chicago was still the A-town. Ordered the rain for the Rock and Cody ending.
I am not upset about that Milwaukee woman. I want to know her. I just think I thought it was fantastic. It represented our area very well. That's what I thought.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
But my whole thing is that. So The Rock comes through as a guy from TKO that can be able to say and do what he wants to do, clearly, past the PG. But here's the thing. It's one thing for Rock to do it. So CM Punk could do it now. Now Drew McIntyre could do it now. I just think that Triple H, as a former DX person, in which he used to be able to kind of open up the envelope a little bit more, do a little bit more than the other wrestlers would do in his era, I think he's allowing this. Knowing that they got their hand on the button, there was a letter out to all the WWE personnel. Hey guys, we're still a PG product. Well, apparently not. Did you watch Raw? Apparently not a PG product. Absolutely not. So now Cody can say what he wants to, and now it's really opened up in a big way. I enjoy it. It's not the Attitude Era to me. It's not. What it is just like, hey, we need to have more hype into WrestleMania. Maybe they're just trying to prepare people for the next Netflix era where you could be able to say some of these things. But to me, it starts with The Rock, and whoever's around that main event, say what you want. But you're not going to get that with Rey Mysterio and Dominic Mysterio and guys like that, or the Usos. You're not getting that. But if you're in the main event picture, say what you want.
Punk alluded to Vince on Monday. Like he dropped it like to Drew, like, oh, who was it? Who was it? Like that happened on Monday.
I mean, that was really tight. I mean, what paragon of virtue said that you were the chosen one, Drew McIntyre?
Yeah.
That was, I tell you what, this is supposed to be scripted. It was not even bullet pointed. It's like, promote the pay-per-view. Okay, good. I can say dipshits on the air then. You can?
That segment was loose, and I loved it all.
Yes.
I loved Seth. I loved Punk. I loved Drew. And the thing about that was, like, I was 100% certain that Drew was going to win the championship.
Mm-hmm.
With Punk now being present and Drew being very obviously obsessed with Punk, like, he could get distracted by Punk and then cost himself the championship. So there are ways out of this now that, it got deeper. I was already excited for Drew versus Seth, and the addition of Punk, although I would have preferred special guest referee, especially after he showed that he could count with his left hand. I'd prefer him in the ring versus on the microphone, even though he'll be fine on commentary. But they did a good job, I think, of bringing a little mystery and intrigue to that one as well.
And just to do it, because I have to every week, PW Insider this week, Drew still hasn't worked out a new deal. They feel like it's under the belief a deal will be struck, but they're focusing on family will be a big part of Drew's next deal. So just throwing that out there.
Take the championship, kiss goodbye, and then go over the railing.
Yeah.
With the championship. And then take it on the indies with him. I just find it fascinating that Triple H can send an email saying, we're still a PG era, but yet we're getting all this. Listen, it doesn't offend me. It doesn't offend us. We're adults. We saw the era, but I'm just saying that it's just a far cry from what we have seen. I mean, you're getting blood, Gabe. You got blood. When was the last time you got blood that wasn't a hard way? When it wasn't a hard way. It's a long, long time. That Randy Orton, Brock Lesnar thing was a hard way on purpose to get blood. It was stupid because that caused a concussion. But to zip up like Cody did, I haven't seen that in a long time.
Yeah.
Not in WWE, no. And here's the thing, like, not only did they do that with the blood, but again, so we all hear about the memo that goes out, hey, we're still PG. So The Rock drops an F-bomb for the first time. Like, he just takes it all the way to the top. It wasn't all the other stuff that he had done, Nope, we're going to go to the top of the list, and we're going to drop an F-bomb on national television on Monday Night Raw.
I mean, it's something when the Chicago audience is holding their pearls. They're clutching their neck. Like, look at you now. Look at you now. Look at you now. F-bomb. Oh.
This is the same crowd that was chanting holy shit earlier in the night.
Right.
Look at you now. Look at you now.
It was... I did not imagine that this Rock still existed. I thought that The Rock would want to protect... Not that he was... I don't think at any point was he ashamed of wrestling, but like heel Rock has always kind of been the best version of Rock. Mm-hmm. When I think back of like when him and Mick Foley put on the best halftime show of all time, when they did that, that Sunday Night Heat in the empty arena, I Quit match. And I think of that version of The Rock, the one that really kind of propelled him into what he became in the WWE. Like that's always kind of been the best version, that heelish version. And I know we've talked about this before. When he came back to do the Cena stuff, like, yeah, he was The Rock, but he didn't talk in the third person. Like he never fully became The Rock again. Like he was Dwayne The Rock Johnson, right? Dwayne was still always there. He's The Rock right now, man.
Yes.
He is 100% in. He doesn't mess up. This guy doesn't need to write promos on his hand. Like this is a version of The Rock I thought was not in there. And I also, because of his pretty clean image outside of professional wrestling and all the other business ventures that he's a part of, I didn't think that he would want to be the bad guy cutting up everybody's white meat baby face in the back to close out a Monday Night Raw. But I am so glad that he is. I am so glad he has completely thrown himself into The Rock.
This is the guy we talk about running for office because of how likable he is and how like down the middle he is and clean and stuff. So to lean into this and play out to like, oh, I'm going to, bleed you. You're going to be bleeding in front of your mother. Like this is for your mother. Like that whole thing. I never expected this. It's unbelievable the run they're on right now.
Gentlemen, this is professional wrestling.
Yeah.
The sports entertainment is down the chute.
Yep.
What we're seeing now, I'm talking about all throughout this show, more so than the main event picture. It's professional wrestling everywhere, all of it. Storytelling, it's pro wrestling.
I'll tell you what, I mean, this may have been, and we didn't have as many shows this week, but after we got past SmackDown, the two shows, like Monday Night Raw and last night's Dynamite, Raw was still better. But those were two really damn good professional wrestling shows. Like, that was the best Raw, start to finish, that I can remember in a long time.
Yep.
Yes.
Long time.
And it felt, and I'm sure to you too, it felt like the 90s because those two promo segments ran so long. You saw the match already in the ring. You saw this right on Raw. It's like, hey, no intros because CM Punk took too long, and also Cody and those guys took too long. So we got the match. Ring the bell as soon as the camera. All right, let's go. Like those matches were cut. Candice LeRae, like 2 minutes.
Yeah, that Candice story not getting a lot of legs to grow right now.
So, yeah, it is cinema what we're watching. It's so wonderful to watch.
Yep.
What do we got in news and notes this week, Brian?
All right, news and notes. Make your schedule for next week. A lot going on. Monday, it was announced yesterday that CM Punk will appear on Ariel Helwani's MMA Hour podcast in studio. Ariel says, quote, "No restrictions, nothing off limits, no holds barred, nothing is taboo." Punk's first interview since joining the WWE.
Oh boy, I thought Ariel's interview with Becky Lynch was good. I thought ours was good. She opened up even more so with Ariel's show. This should be very interesting. So there's going to be a litany of AEW questions, I'm sure.
Yep.
Can you talk about it?
Yes.
Well, no one cares about Jungle Boy's version of it. That's probably why we haven't heard anything.
But he can talk AEW without talking Brawl Out. Like, Drew's pulling up to the muffin shop, so you're able to toe that line a little bit even on TV.
Well, which, again, was...
Let's go!
Just chef's kiss by Drew.
Uh-huh.
Why is he at the muffin shop? I mean, I know you guys saw, we put together the bingo card for Drew McIntyre. We're hoping that he hit a couple of them. But yeah, just fantastic. So what can he talk about? If he can't talk about Brawl Out in Chicago, he could talk about London, can't he?
Can he talk about Brawl In?
I don't think he can. I think he can talk about London. I don't think he can talk about what happened in the back with the Bucks and all that, and Larry the dog.
And Ace Steel. Don't forget about Ace.
Yep. And Ace Steel. Yes.
Another show for you to watch, Hood. Starting next week, Wednesday, April 3rd, WWE Speed debuts on Twitter/X. There'll be a tournament to decide the first ever Speed champion. 3-minute matches on social media starting next Wednesday.
I don't know if you know, but we'll have a new show here on GKW Speed, and we will review those matches in 3 minutes.
In 3 minutes? Okay, perfect.
3-minute pod, yes.
Excellent.
Also, the return of the Slammies next week, Sunday, April 7th, before Night 2 of Mania at WWE World. It will be the Slammies, WWE.com/Slammies to vote on the winners.
Seems like a good use of the Slammies. You know, you kind of use it as programming around WrestleMania, throw it on a platform somewhere. It's fine.
All this stuff without Vince. First WrestleMania without Vince. No Slammies without Vince. This is something, man. They're still using the old concepts, but without the old man, what a time.
But he's still sort of hanging around because it was announced today, speaking of WWE World, which will essentially be their old Access, a few days of it in Philly. Hulk Hogan will be appearing one of the nights there.
They just want his merch. That's all. They just want to cash in on his merchandise. That's all it is.
As long as he doesn't appear on the show, I don't care.
I wouldn't rule that out at this point.
And
finally,
just marketing.
For your schedule next week, Saturday, April 6th, Night 1 of WrestleMania, AEW Collision will be back on TV, 11:30 Eastern on Saturday night. Collision after Night 1 of WrestleMania.
Well, the reason why it's getting pushed back because that's also Night 1 of the Final Four. So TBS, TNT are going to have Final Four coverage of those two games, which is why Collision will go on after that. So they'll have a decent enough lead-in into that.
I guess there's a chance later than that if it's after the game.
Oh, yeah. Certainly we'll have a chance to be later than that.
But Mania should be done. If they're starting at 7 and they do the 4 hours, they should be done, no?
No,
The
I think
Rock's
with the,
entrance is going to take a half hour, man.
yes. And don't forget,
kidding me?
there's a post-game show after the Final Four, which is going to be another
Yes.
15, 20 minutes. So it might be even later than that. I get it. I mean, it's just that if you don't have anything hot in that first segment, if it's not Swerve Joe related, then you're just sunk. If you're just rolling out there with Luchasaurus against, just a regular in a preliminary match, it's not going to matter. Like,
No.
we don't. And I believe this is the Worcester, Massachusetts tapings. I guess it is.
Yeah, because it's going to be taped. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what. And by the way, they need a map. Weren't you just in Boston? Boston, Quebec. It's like, what's the mass? Like, oh, okay, somebody needs a map in that company. You were just in Massachusetts, and of course Taz, when he says, and then Shivani says, "Hey, we're gonna be in Worcester, Massachusetts," and then Taz says, "Yep, Beantown." That's not Beantown. That's,
The whole state, no?
they
Yeah.
were horrible. That broadcast was horrible. I don't know what their problem was. They couldn't get anything right. It was just a bad night on commentary. Horrible.
That's fair.
Yeah.
What did you boys have for your matches of the week?
Oh, come on, Gabe. You know, brother. You saw. I think we all have the number one match. I think we all have it, don't we?
Yep.
Ospreay Shibata.
That was
I
good.
mean, it's Takeshita or Strickland or Ospreay Shibata. I mean, because
Yeah.
WWE's telling stories. They got no time for your 5-star classics.
Well,
They're telling
but I'll
stories.
tell you what, JD versus Ricochet, at
Yep.
no point did I think that JD McDonough and Ricochet would make my list for matches of the week. Yet here we are. JD versus Ricochet was the best match WWE had all week. I'm surprised I'm saying it, but here we are.
You mean you didn't expect the wrist lock into the Destroyer? That's not something you typically see every week from Ricochet.
Wait a minute. So what was that finish? It's something I've never seen before. While McDonough is standing, wasn't it a shooting star press?
Shooting
Yeah.
star press while he was standing.
Brother, I mean, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
I wrote down Uso and Nakamura.
Yep. at
Yes,
the end of the
I did
show.
also, besides the finish, I thought that was a good match up
Yeah,
until the
which-
chaos at the end.
You kind of knew was going to happen with that, right? Like, because you knew he was going to have the chaotic finish. I mean, I didn't know it was going to be The Rock because,
Right.
like everybody else, I assumed that The Rock had come out, said his thing, and left.
Right.
But then, again, having The Rock at the end was, oh, wait. How cool is that? That they found a way to have Rock be a surprise twice in the same night. Twice
Yes.
in the same night, The Rock was a surprise. That's how good things are right now in WWE.
Something no one's mentioning. I just want. So you remember the impetus of this is Solo Sikoa going after Cody, and Cody's getting after Solo. But then when The Rock appeared, they stopped, drop, and roll by Solo, rolling out of the picture, just out of the picture. It's just like, hey, Solo, aren't you still around? Nope, The Rock's got him. That's okay. If you rewind it, you can see him kind of looking up like, oh, it's The Rock's turn. All right, so long.
By the way, Rock will be on Raw Monday in Barclays. I was literally there last week, and he is front and center of all those advertisements. Like, he's like, hey, this guy's coming here next week.
Well, okay. Just quickly then, since we all kind of agreed on the 3 matches, do we think we're getting some sort of Stone Cold interference here?
Yes, and Cena.
Because they were, again, you want to talk about being in front and center, they were obviously a part of that closing segment, having those two on a truck out back.
There's a reason why that the framework was exactly what it was. They kept the frame
They did.
on Stone Cold and Cena for a reason. I just think all hands on deck to help Cody win the championship.
Yep.
It's gonna be a 3-ring circus that second night. It's gonna be everybody. Everybody's gonna be helping. It'll be as ridiculous as Sting Triple H at WrestleMania. Everybody, old NWO, here comes DX. Here we go.
Maybe even Sting shows up. Who knows?
There you
Well,
go.
who knows? He's available. Like anybody that had a problem with Roman is going to be like the Ghost of Christmas Past,
Right.
and it's just going to be just ridiculous. And Cody will have the championship with a million guys helping him, because that's what we talked about for weeks on this show. Cody can't win the championship unless he has help,
Yep. It's got to happen.
and that's why when Gabe says I'm a Royal Rumble guy, not a WrestleMania guy, this is what is going to happen. Now, we love these stories, but Royal Rumble's got always great action, but it's going to be ridiculous. The amount of people is going to be around ringside to help Cody. It's going to be crazy.
A whole new world.
Certainly is. Can't wait to talk about it next week. Again, big thanks to Becky Lynch for joining us. Check out her book, The Man, Not Your Average Girl. Can't wait to read it myself. Next week, it's going to be WrestleMania preview, AEW building towards Dynasty. Make sure you comment, subscribe on YouTube, youtube.com/@GoodKarmaWrestling. We'll be back to talk about it all in the world of professional wrestling